DFS show with John Impemba and James Grande.
What is going on, FA Nation? John Impemba here with James Grande. Welcome into the Fantasy Alarm NBA DFS Playbook live show. It is Friday. We have a nice 7-game main slate here for us all. Starting at 7 p.m. Eastern time. Late night hammer on this slate. Just 8 p.m. They don't have the late games on this slate, which is honestly good. For as many times as we complain about like getting the late games off of the slate, today we don't want. We didn't want to have to deal with the Lakers, who are pulling out all of their starters minus Reeves, essentially, and having to deal with that matchup against Denver. We didn't want to have to deal with that. We didn't want to have to deal with Sacramento and Phoenix. So that's not a bad matchup. I guess Sacramento-Phoenix isn't a bad one there. But, you know, Sabonis might be back. You know, I don't know. You know, didn't want to have to deal with that one. We're good with
Utah. You don't want to play Utah-Toronto, John.
Yeah, didn't want to play Utah-Toronto, who sent Jeremy Roden packing to the
just to save his games. They're like, God, sorry, gotta go. You just had 30 and 15, but you got to go spend a couple days in the G League.
Yeah, our guy John Collins just out 2 weeks now, ankle injury. You know,
sure,
yeah, something like that. So, anyways. There's also plenty of news for us to deal with on this slate. You know, we don't have the Celtics news yet. Porzingis was at shoot around. He was at shoot around again. We don't know if he participated.
No. Participated.
Oh, okay.
Well, it was participated.
All right. Well, we'll see how much participation he actually got in there. This is again the front leg of a back-to-back for Boston. They play tomorrow in Brooklyn, so we'll see who suits up for the Celtics here. You see plenty of red on that screen. We're not on Let Them Know Watch. We got that news yesterday. Donovan Mitchell ruled out. Cleveland, Memphis trending towards being maybe our favorite game of the entire slate. We're still waiting on the Jaren Jackson Jr. news, I believe. Right, Grande? Yeah. We don't have any updates there. So that will obviously impact a little bit on where we go with well, probably both sides of the matchup, but definitely with the Memphis side there. Atlanta and the Clippers, you know, Trae Young, one of the more popular plays today. You know, probable. So looking like he's gonna be good to go in that spot. So should be a fun 7-game slate to end the work week. And you're fixing to probably have a takedown today. Fresh out of the barbershop. You know, nice fade, nice little beard trim lineup going on for you. So you're feeling good here today.
Yeah, nothing like, honestly, like I felt like this forever. Nothing like leaving the shop. You're like, damn, good haircut. Everything else is smooth sailing from there. So feeling good about the cut, feeling good about the slate, like the slate. Love that we don't have Utah-Toronto. Hate that we still have Philly. But you know what? We get 2 of the 3 of those teams away from the slate, and I can deal with just one of them. So should be a fun slate. And you mentioned it. 8 p.m. We're going to know by 10:30 if we have all the dollars in our bank accounts now.
It's true. And, you know, you may know earlier if you don't have the right exposure.
Yes, you may know right away.
Like last night with Luka Doncic, basically. Or I guess Cade Cunningham or Paolo Banchero. Any one of those 3, you had him in your lineup, you were probably looking pretty good there. All right. Top overall spend up on the slate is Jason Tatum. We don't know if he's going to play or not. He's 11-1. Then you go down to the guards. You have Harden and Trae Young over $10,000. I mentioned Trae being popular. That was a lie. I completely lied to everybody. He is not getting any ownership here. That's because all the value is at the point guard position, right? Philadelphia and San Antonio getting a lot of love. Cleveland obviously getting a lot of love on this slate here, which makes, I guess what I should have said, Trae Young an interesting tournament play, given the way he has played. Same with Harden on the other side of that matchup. Do you find yourself looking to spend up for any of these options, given the value that is at the guard spot today?
Yeah, I mean, you could always look to be contrarian. You know, Harden's been elite with or without Kawhi Leonard of late. 50-plus fantasy points in 5 of his last 6 overall. I think actually, 5 of his last 6 overall. Massive double-doubles recently. Has flirted with triple-doubles as well. The scoring has been there. It looks like kind of like Harden of old. Not so efficient, but getting to the free throw line as much as he has. And the minutes we've talked about a lot. Elite. I know Dyson Daniels' defense is looming, but it hasn't really mattered. Like some of these matchups haven't been fun. Some of them have, and he hasn't really had any problem with any of them. So if you want to get to Harden, you can. Kawhi is back for what that's worth.
Yeah.
Trey, awful matchup, but he's been really good lately. The ceiling has been on display. 50 plus in 4 straight. The minutes are great. Free throw attempts are great. We know that the peripherals will be great. Anytime he scores, it's a big game. So if you want to play Trey, no one's going to play him. I like LaMelo Ball quite a bit. John, we are now 12 games removed from Victor Wembanyama leaving the San Antonio Spurs lineup.
The guy that was like minus 100,000 for Defensive Player of the Year.
100,000 in that specific category.
Yeah.
Because I am using this specific sample.
Yeah.
If you had to guess where San Antonio ranks defensively, where would you guess?
27th.
Dead last.
Oh, that's pretty bad because there are some bad teams in this NBA.
Dead last over that. Again, very specific to pick 12 games. But I think it matters here, right?
Yeah.
Like the context, there's no Victor Wembanyama versus Victor Wembanyama being there.
You have a guy with a 30-foot wingspan.
30-foot wingspan, yeah. He looks like the Empire State Building when you're shooting against him. During that 12 games, they are dead last defensively. We've talked ad nauseum, and I've been the first one to like get out in front and be like, yo, LaMelo, make some shots because you haven't in a while. The good thing is the peripheral stats haven't fallen off. The minutes haven't really fallen off when games have been competitive and he's been out of foul trouble. So all we're looking for is a few more made shots. And against the last ranked defensive team since Victor Wembanyama left the lineup, I think more made shots can be had. What I know for a fact is when you look at Charlotte, there is one really good basketball player getting all the ownership once again.
Yeah.
Or I guess they're like kind of right on even playing field when it comes to ownership between LaMelo and Miles Bridges.
One guy's playing significantly better than
one guy's playing significantly better. And I almost guarantee that ownership does not remain neutral. Like Bridges probably comes in higher. I would be interested in pivoting to LaMelo for a couple hundred more. And just,
if he hits any more threes, because he's taking a ton of them, just not
goes for
making,
60.
Not making any, right? He's blowing up. Trey, to that same extent, Trey Young is not hitting any threes right now. He went for 50 plus in 4 straight.
Yep.
If he starts hitting any of his 10 3-point attempts,
yep,
great. But if not, like, hey, LaMelo, let's get to the free throw line again. 10 free throw attempts again, again for 10 from the line. Let's do more of that if you're not going to be making those threes to help with your ceiling. So I'm in agreement with you there. Again, Ja versus Cleveland. If there's no Jaren Jackson Jr., that's been your spot here. Everything trends upwards for Morant without Triple J on the floor. Ownership wise, it's value and then it's Garland, right? And we kind of expected Garland to be a super popular play. We expected Cleveland to be a super popular play. For those, again, no Donovan Mitchell tonight. Garland coming off 55 fantasy points against Brooklyn, 30 actual in that game. This is the highest game total on the board. It's a competitive spread. Everything trending in the direction of getting exposure to this game. Now, everybody's playing the Cleveland side of this game.
Yes.
So if you wanted to be contrarian, go play the Memphis side. Again, Cleveland's only a 2.5 or was a 2.5 point favorite this morning. If it's
that stayed firm. 2.5.
So Cleveland's a 2.5 point road favorite. It's a 240. Was it 3.5? Something like that total
for 244.
244.5 total. Memphis is going to score points. So people on Memphis are going to have fantasy points. Go play John Morant for low ownership, Desmond Bane low ownership, or Triple J if he plays. But Garland is the guy in this range here that's getting all the love, almost 35% right now at this price range here.
I mean, it's warranted. Like Cleveland's ownership today is warranted, right? They're full of good plays, and truthfully, a lot of them are underpriced for no Donovan Mitchell being there. Like pace up spot. I know Cleveland plays pretty fast, but nobody plays faster than Memphis. So like big pace up spot where Cleveland's 11th, Memphis is 1. If there's no Jaren Jackson, there's no defensive player of the year candidate in the middle of that defense. Like it's going to be much easier for Garland. And even if Jaren Jackson plays, The assist percentage goes up 5% without Donovan Mitchell. The minutes we've seen in multiple instances. The last time Donovan Mitchell didn't play was the other day, 36 minutes. The game prior, John, 39 minutes for Darius Garland.
Yeah.
I know that was overtime, but 34 regulation. So, like, it hasn't been this case of, like, this one-off Darius Garland just played a lot of minutes. No, he plays more minutes. Donovan Mitchell's been without, or Darius Garland's been without Donovan Mitchell 5 times this year, and that's been the case every time.
And we talk about it when Cleveland has played competitive games. These guys all play usually a bunch of minutes. So,
yep. And they're also on a 15-game winning streak. So, like, maybe some incentive to try to keep that going, right? You don't know if they break the record, they also probably win the most games of all time, right? I mean, so or what are they? 55-10, so they tie 72-10. They'd be 1 game behind the Warriors. So, you never know what their incentive is moving forward. But I think it's Garland and basically, like you said, the rest. I will salute Halliburton a little bit if Siakam is ultimately ruled out. Siakam got the downgrade, midday downgrade. And Tyrese Halliburton this year has been really good without Pascal Siakam. 1.3 fantasy points per minute, about a 24% usage rate. And we've talked about Halliburton a lot. I guarantee no matter like how poorly he played in that game, because he had been playing so well coming off that injury, the confidence is sky high after hitting that shot +1. Probably the shot of the year. Most definitely the shot of the year. Yeah.
3-pointer to tie and the one to win. So.
Yeah. With Giannis in your face, like, and one on Giannis. So, like, that would be my only other, like, gotta give him some love. But basically, go to the Castle, go to the value.
Well, I'll hit Castle at shooting guard here. When we did the preview show, we kind of just jumped down and we went Philly and Ty Jerome. Chris Paul, though, we didn't talk about. Chris Paul is getting a lot of ownership here today. Again, no De'Aaron Fox now for the season. Chris Paul hasn't been very good. I don't think I'm gonna play Chris Paul. Like, I think I'm gonna let the ownership, like, let this be my fade today. You've had calls where, like, if so-and-so beats me tonight at this price, like, that's fine. I think that's where I'm at with Chris Paul. If Chris Paul beats me tonight at $4,900, and I get it, the price is fine, but at like 40% ownership, Chris Paul, like, I don't know. Like, what is he going to do tonight to beat you? Is he gonna have like a 20-point double-double? Like, I don't see that happening.
So, I mean, there is, in terms of, like, when you look at the sample without, like, a lot of the guys that are on the floor, center at obviously Fox and Wemby, but then you factor in, like, some of the guys they traded, some of the guys that they, it's like a decent sample, 140 minutes. The usage rate is trash. Like, we won't hang our hats there. It's 13%. That's bad. He is over a fantasy point per minute. So I guess it just depends on where you fall for his minutes. Because if you think that this De'Aaron Fox news solidifies his minutes, then I think he's a great play. If you think that the minutes, because the Spurs have basically no chance of now getting into the play-in tournament, and that's why De'Aaron Fox is getting the surgery, because I'm sure at first they're like, oh, we have a chance, right? Like, Dallas is hurt. We can, and then they lost to Dallas that first game, and they're like, oh, we don't have a chance. So depending on your opinion on where the Chris Paul minutes lie is probably where you fall on, like, which side of the argument you're at. Because he's 40% rostered.
I think if there was a different slate, I'd be all in. But there's other options for us today at, like, the similar price point at the same position. And I feel like there's higher chance of uncertainty with Chris Paul almost than the other players that are on the board.
So we'll do that. We'll do this exercise, okay?
Sure.
If you could, and this is, like, you don't have to, but if you're building one lineup and you can only play one of these players, Chris Paul versus Ty Jerome.
I think I'm playing Ty Jerome.
I agree. Chris Paul or Jared Butler, who is currently the highest rostered player of the slate.
I think I'm still playing Butler.
Chris Paul or Jeff Doughton.
I mean, if you think Down's going to play over 30 minutes and he's cheaper, like I feel like I'm playing Doughton there.
Quentin Grimes 1 minute ago ruled out.
Right.
So we will. There's more Philly news to come because Quentin Grimes, Oubre, Drummond, they're all.
You signed O'Shea Brissett to a 10-day today.
I did. I was looking at the injury report. He is not on the injury report, and I don't know if that means that's because he's available or if he's just like if he's not available today. They signed him early enough to make me think he's going to be available.
Right. Like he's there to sign the contract, so he should be there to
right? Like you would think that it was in the morning, so he could wherever he was in the world, he could probably get to Philadelphia based on Philly could probably flies him out to wherever they got to go. So I agree.
Again, for me, it's just the ownership. Like, I don't know. Like, we like Castle better, right? We like Vassell better today in terms of like upside on this slate for San Antonio. If Chris Paul goes and gives you he plays 28 minutes, you get 28 fantasy points. Like, he's
1.02 fantasy points.
Yeah, so like, okay, that's fine, but like, I don't think that's winning you a tournament. So like, I feel like we've seen Butler in like 18 minutes go for 35 fantasy points. Doughton obviously has had some really good games of late as well. Like, I'd take my chances there.
O'Shea Brissett, Power said 17 seconds ago, and I thought he was not serious, but their tweet came out on my screen 57 seconds ago. So when he typed that, it was probably actually 17 seconds.
Yeah.
So O'Shea Brissett is available.
Yeah.
To ruin our lives tonight.
I don't know how much he's going to play. I'm still playing like Ricky Council tonight, right?
Hey, buddy.
Who knows?
Buddy, don't put that into the air for Nick Nurse.
Yeah.
He's going to play third. They have even like Alex Reese and Justin Edwards being questionable. Like they have everybody questionable.
Yeah.
Jeff Doughton's on a two-way. How many games does Jeff Doughton have available? Like there is questions everywhere with Philly.
Yeah.
But what we do know, Jared Butler's going to play, and he's going to play a lot. Especially without Quentin Grimes. He's going to play a lot.
So Ty Jerome, like we talked about the other day, he's, we assume he takes on more minutes here, right? Like that's the assumption in this game.
Yes.
We've seen him have a 52 fantasy point game in 36 minutes against Portland, right? Like we've seen him go for 43 in 23 minutes against Memphis. He is 17% versus a 40% Chris Paul at the same price. Like I'll play Ty Jerome and again, if I lose to Chris Paul today because he goes and has a 20 and 15 game or something like that, then okay. You know what? I got beat by that, but I'm going to let 40% of the field play Chris Paul, old man Chris Paul, and who gives a hell game, right? That doesn't matter for anybody here. So that's my thought on this.
Well, to your Jerome point too, like if you needed like, okay, how am I going to break the tie? I will break the tie for anyone that was in a tiebreaker right now. Okay,
1.4 fantasy points.
I will break that tie for everybody right now. Ty Jerome, removing Donovan Mitchell, Karis LeVert, Georges Niang from the floor, right? Those three players will not be available. Two of them are no longer on the team. Ty Jerome leads the team, 5.25% usage bump, up to a 28.5% usage. Very good. 28.5. That's 16% higher than Chris Paul's usage.
Right.
Ty Jerome, 1.33 fantasy points a minute in that pocket. If his 24 minutes are more likely to outperform Chris Paul's 28 minutes, if that's where you would like,
right,
them at.
And if he gets hot, like they also will keep him on the floor, right?
Correct.
So like,
correct.
That's where I'm at. I'm assuming what the field thinks we get DeAndre Hunter starting, Max Strus, like Garland with Mobley and Allen, I assume, and Jerome off the bench.
Yeah, Jerome's not going to start. He hasn't started in. He started like a couple times for us earlier in the year, and I jumped all over that. But Ty Jerome over
like
TJ McConnell.
if Strus struggles, like they'll play Jerome over him. Like we've seen that before. So.
And to be fair, not that we want this because we like Jared Allen today. They will play him over Jared Allen too if they don't want to do the double big stuff. Like they unfortunately will play him over like Jared Allen too.
Would you prefer Jerome or McConnell today?
Not close. Not close.
No, Jerome for sure.
Not close.
Unless like Halliburton got ruled out of nowhere, which I guess could be in the realm of possibility. Philly's not playing anybody. Maybe Indiana doesn't want to play anybody either. So we've seen that happen before.
Yep.
All right. Anything else here at point guard? You did a shout earlier on Luke Kennard on the preview show. If there's no Triple J, do we get like Luke Kennard big minutes again here?
I mean, you could make a case for him or Scottie Pippen. Pippen has played 26 plus in 3 straight and has been great.
And Pippen's actually getting a little ownership tonight as well.
Yeah, I mean, his minutes have been great and the production's great. This is like what we got all first half of the year from Scottie.
Yeah.
It's just a very volatile situation because Memphis is who Memphis is, right? So I'm good with I prefer Pippen to Kennard.
Mm-hmm.
Do I prefer either of them to the Philly stuff? Probably not.
Yeah, and Pippen, I would agree with you. What would you play, Pippen or Doughton?
I would play Jeff Doughton.
Okay.
I guess I'm a little curious on the Doughton stuff.
If he doesn't start, are you afraid of like a DNP or something like that?
I mean, I don't know how many days. I actually tweeted at a Sixers beat writer to see if I'd get a response, and I haven't. To see how many games Jeff Doughton has left on his two-way. Because I have the official two-way tracker up.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have like games. It has who are on the two-ways. And Jeff Doughton's one of their 3 players on a two-way deal. So I don't personally know how many games. I think it's because it's not games played. It's games being dressed for. So I don't know how many games Jeff Doughton has dressed because that's not what it like. We've seen him appear in 33 games.
Yeah.
He's definitely dressed in more than 33
It's been a DNP
games.
coach's decision or something, right?
Yeah. So like, I don't have the answer for that is a inherent risk with playing two-way players to begin with. And that's been my like Brandon Williams thing this whole time, right? Like if Brandon Williams is active, one of these games, like we're going to see him in street clothes because or just like not act like it's going to be like a weird situation where he just doesn't play and you're like, oh, he wasn't even available for this.
Sure.
And that's kind of how the two-way stuff works. So I mean, I have to believe Jeff Doughton plays, especially if we find out more Philly, like Oubre's ruled out and Edwards is ruled out, because then it's just like, now we're talking about available bodies.
Yeah.
So like Jalen Hood-Schifino, John, is another two-way guy that they have. He's not listed on their injury report today. Mm-hmm. So what if Jalen Hood-Schifino is their backup point guard today?
Right,
and Doughton DMPs. Right? That is a realistic possibility.
Oh, that's what I said. Like, if Doughton doesn't start, you almost can't play him, right? Because you get to that point, you don't know.
And that's kind of in line with the ownership, right? Because we've talked about it enough. He's been great for 3 straight games. You would think that guy would be more than 9% rostered.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, here we are. There is a little... If Jeff Doughton's announced a starter, all systems go. He's probably the most popular player of the slate.
Sure. All right. Let's go to shooting guard, and we'll hit some of the more chalk as we work our way in. And guys, we appreciate you all tuning in here. If you got any questions, throw them in the chat. We'll have you to bring them up on screen and break it all down for you here. Edwards is 95. We have Jaylen Brown at 88, questionable. Tyler Hero's also $8,800. Desmond Bane is $8,700 is your top 4 guys here.
Yeah.
Didn't care for it, right, this morning? So
yeah, I mean, it is what it is what it is tier. Like, if you want to play him in a tournament, it is what it is, right? Like, it's just nothing that really. Desmond Bane would stand out the most if Jaren Jackson's out, or Jaylen Brown would stand out the most if Jason Tatum was out.
Yeah.
And even then, it's like, Yeah, sure.
Yeah, we're waiting. Or I mean, we're obviously waiting already. You said on the Boston news, so that would change
A lot.
sort of everything here.
Yeah.
To let us know what's going on. So, all right, so we have that group there. You mentioned Bane already. I still like Jalen Green at $7,500. I got him in the last round of all of my underdog drafts today. This is a little dark there because I figured some nice ups, 50 fantasy points. Dallas kind of garbage.
Hopefully they're not canceled.
Hopefully not. Let's see, got here.
Just go to San Antonio.
That's it. Vassell and Castle, right?
Yeah.
That's what you're looking.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, Stephon Castle he's played like 20 or 30 minutes like 16 times this year. He's a 20-point per game scorer in those games. If Stephon Castle plays 30 minutes, you're gonna have to have him. He's a good fantasy point per minute player. He's a high usage guy. With all the guys out, including Wemby and Fox, he's almost a 29% usage rate player. I mean, you have to have that especially at like 20%. I prefer. It's funny because like I think Vassell's ownership is where it is because he's definitively a starter, right? Like we think Stephon Castle is going to start, but we're not sure Stephon Castle is going to start. Like we've done this before where he hasn't started, and Vassell has the better positional eligibility. So I think that's why you're getting the discrepancy in ownership between them. I think Castle's the better play though. I think he just has, I know Vassell maybe just went for a ceiling and I shouldn't say that he doesn't have the higher ceiling, but I am more comfortable getting to Castle than Vassell, but also if you want to play them both, you could do that too. I think that there's a lot of spur combinations you can get to tonight comfortably. And if you want to make it these two, then by all means, I just think Castle is the better play of the two. Not to hate on Vassell, but I think Castle is just like almost the usage is better, the fantasy points per minute are better, the ownership is less.
Well, as I said, people are, I think, chasing it a little bit. Now, again, Castle's still getting some ownership here, around 20%, but Vassell's 35%. No surprise, Castle had the down game last time, and Vassell broke the slate, sort of. So, like, people just sort of chasing off.
Ryan's positional stuff, too.
Yeah, and Ryan's playing them both. You can.
I agree. Yeah,
no doubt, Zach.
I think max 2, max 3 Spurs tonight is a really popular approach. It's a great matchup, and they're all cheap. These are the most expensive guys you're going to spend for on the Spurs. So,
agreed. Where do you go next at this position? There's obviously some Philly crossover. There's Cleveland against Strus, getting a lot of love here tonight at $4,600. What's your next favorite play?
It didn't get any better today. You and I talked about it. Like it's not a great position and one that I'm not like too fond of, and that's why I am just kind of living in that range where I'm playing Spurs. I am playing Philly. I am definitely not as high as the field on Max Strus. I will grant you that there's probably 30-minute upside. Probably. I won't definitively say there is because, like you said, there's a lot of wings that they could go to. If Ty Jerome's cooking, Max Strus, and if Max Strus isn't making threes, they have a lot of Max Struses on their roster.
Yeah.
They have better. If Isaac Okoro hits 3 threes, they have better Max Struses.
I was going to play Isaac Okoro, right? Like,
or Dean Wade. Like Dean Wade had a 27-point half against the Celtics last year. Like they have a wealth of options. So I am definitely lower on Max Strus than the field. But it's fine. Like if that's the direction you want to go to.
I mean, I think that's what's kind of weird, right? Is like, Strus is getting over 20%. Chris Paul, like I mentioned, obviously is getting around 40%. Like guys that have, has some floors, man. Like they got some low floors, are getting all the love here today.
We didn't talk Cole Anthony necessarily, like back at the 5K tier. I think he's fine too. I know there's like a toe sprain. He obviously was late scratch yesterday. He is a ceiling guy, even against Minnesota. Like there is a ceiling at 5K for Cole Anthony if he plays. So that would be another one that I would like consider it in large field stuff really only. But anything else, like Memphis, like Vince Williams could be the guy playing 25 minutes and Kennard could play 20. You know, we talked about how we liked Kennard, but like there's no guarantee. Okoro low floor, Merrill, we don't know what the minutes are going to look like. The one interesting thing I could see happening, and we all assume it's going to be Stephon Castle, and not that it matters if Stephon Castle doesn't start because the minutes will be great, but we have seen Julian Champagnie be a guy that's really good off the Spurs bench when he's extended. So at $3,400, I don't hate the idea of getting to like a Julian Champagnie either, especially at a position where like struggling to find a lot of, you know, there's not a lot of variation for me. Like there's not a loaned play that I love at shooting guard today versus like other positions. So if you wanted to like punt Champagnie with the thought that he could start or even get extended into the 20s, I don't hate that thought at $3,400 because we know how good of a three-point shooter he can be.
Agreed. Small forward. Again, Tatum's up here. You can play him a power forward as well.
Siakam in, John. Siakam in.
Does that change anything for you with Siakam? You were talking about Halliburton, right?
I would have been more in on Indiana, but I would have been in Indiana, but just kidding. But I would have played some Indiana. Now I'm not. Now I'm pretending like they don't even exist.
All right. Kawhi's $8,700. He came back the other day at 51 fantasy points, then rested. Wagner 86 had a good game yesterday. Again, this is a position where I don't think you and I were really looking to spend up on. Vassell's here. I felt like we were just kind of comfortable plugging in that, or like Keldon Johnson, more San Antonio plays. Has anything changed for you really at small forward today?
I like Kawhi. I like Kawhi a lot. The minutes are obviously just too good to pass on for Kawhi right now. I kind of said it last time where we hadn't really gotten the Kawhi ceiling. Now the price is more expensive. And while that's still true, he's been really good, mostly really good. The defensive numbers are still there. The usage is still really high, especially without Norm Powell. It's a great spot, and we know James Harden's going to have the toughest assignment on the board. So I like Kawhi in this pace-up spot quite a bit. And you can get to either Boston guy if the other one's out. But there's nothing else that stands out up in that range.
Yeah, I agree.
At all. The one thing I'd say probably is if depending on what Boston does and has, I definitely think Andrew Wiggins could be pretty interesting. Because if it's just like a shell of Boston, then like, yeah, they're a highly rated defense. But if that defense doesn't have some of its best players, then I think Wiggins makes a lot of sense at 64. But yeah, other than that, nothing really changes.
Sure. All right. Well, then where do you go for the value? Anything?
Yeah, I'm not surprised to see Keldon Johnson getting a lot of ownership because he's really good per minute and usage rate with all this stuff out. Wembanyama, De'Aaron Fox, and a bunch of other pieces as well. 25.5% usage, almost 1.1 fantasy points per minute. The minutes are a little bit up and down, but he is a very good offensive player. Decent rebounder, not great anywhere else, but those two areas he can really stand out. And if he puts them both together, then he has a really high ceiling. So Keldon Johnson, 47, good chalk. We talked Strus. Can't play like any of this Memphis stuff. Ricky Council is the next name that just is really obvious. Like, I almost want some of these Philly plays to play because it hasn't mattered for Ricky Council, and he's not as high owned as he should be.
No.
Like, I want Oubre to play. because if he doesn't, or like Edwards, I want Edwards to play, because if they don't, the Ricky Council ownership is going to be like 90% if they don't, because he's almost guaranteed to start in that case. So
do you think the Council ownership is where it's at because he's splitting it with DaQuan Jeffries, who's getting about the same exact ownership as him tonight?
Yeah, I mean, I think Council's the better play. Like per minute, DaQuan Jeffries is not a very good fantasy player. Like I would, if I'm picking between the two, like, and I understand on the one side, we talked about how bad the Spurs defense has been. I understand it. I do understand one of those two players is currently listed as a starter. Council's not. DaQuan Jeffries is starting over Nick Smith right now. So like, I understand it, but he's not a good fantasy point per minute guy. Like really at all. The game prior in Miami, he had 20 fantasy points in 34 minutes. Like just goes to show you. And I'm not saying Council's been great, but we have seen a pretty good ceiling out of Ricky Council when he's been extended before, despite how ugly his shot is, because it's the worst looking shot I've ever seen in my life. And it's not surprising to see him shoot 28%. He just does a lot more when he's on the floor than DaQuan Jeffries. I will gladly spend $100 more for Ricky Council if the ownership is going to stay the way it's going to, if it's going to break right now. Like if it stays, no question, I will be playing Ricky Council over DaQuan Jeffries, and I will just DaQuan Jeffries decided to like be really good tonight. Okay, sure. 40% of the field went to like a 0.6 fantasy player. Sure. Okay. I'll take my chances with the guy, higher fantasy point per minute guy.
I agree. All right. Power forward again has Tatum up here. Go down to Bam. Bridges has been unbelievable. 66, 54, 54, 64 the last 4 games. $9,100. Mobley, $8,600. Banchero's coming off the game that he had last night. Gets Minnesota this time in the second leg of a back-to-back, though. $9,100 as well. We talked Kawhi already. I talked to you on the show this morning, like, if Jared Jackson Jr. gets ruled out, I really like Evan Mobley tonight at $8,600.
Do you know what his – I wrote up his – dude, he has Evan Mobley gets a 10% assist increase to like 26% when Donovan Mitchell's off the floor. That is telling me like Evan Mobley does like, oh, Donnie's off the floor, I can do whatever you need me to do, include become a triple-double threat. I'm not calling for a triple-double from Evan Mobley, but 3 of the 5 games Donovan Mitchell's missed this year, he's had 13 potential assists. I don't think that's by accident that he's had that many potentials. So
the ball gets to his hands and then he either kicks out or scores.
Right. He's making but that's just not the Evan Mobley from years past, right? Like he is not doing the scoring and he's not doing the passing as well as he has, sans Mitchell this year. So I agree. If there's no Triple J, it's a really, really advantageous spot. Even with Triple J, like it's still solid. He's a little higher owned than Miles Bridges, which I do find a little interesting. That's definitely a price and positional eligibility thing too. Like you can play Mobley at center. He's $500 cheaper than Bridges. Bridges, since the All-Star break though, 31% usage rate, 1.4 fantasy points per minute. There's no like real wrong answer.
Yeah.
And we said it on the show last night. If that's how you want to spend up tonight with a Bridges Mobley stack, then you can also do that and possibly have like 110 fantasy points in your lineup to start, right? So I like both. I don't have like a lean either way. Maybe Mobley because the game environment's a little better, but Bridges is facing the worst defense in the league since Victor Wembanyama went down. So I love both players right there.
And that game that Ryan's mentioning where Mobley went off against Memphis, Jaren Jackson Jr. played 25 minutes. He got in foul trouble in that game. that Cleveland game also, there was no Garland, right? So that was a game where they were missing Garland. They played, they had Mitchell basically as point guard in that one. Now they're going to be without Mitchell this time. So anytime someone is missing from that lineup, I just go right to Evan Mobley more often than not. So I also say, like, I don't necessarily want to keep tempting fate with against the current leading defensive player of the year candidate in Jackson Jr. So, sure, he got the better of him that time. Doesn't necessarily mean it's always going to be the case, but
right.
I would prefer not to have to go against him if I could pick
I agree.
either or. But yeah, he did have a really good game against him last time out. Where do you go from there? Like, those are your spend ups. Do you look at Tari Eason in that matchup at $6,200? If PJ Washington is in, do you think he plays a bunch of minutes here? Do you like the Philly guys? Like, where do you go next at power forward?
Yeah, I told you I would throw Julius Randle in there as like a large field tournament play, just because he's been so good per minute since returning. He has smashed since returning. So Julius Randle in tournaments gets Orlando second leg of a back-to-back. And Orlando did end up having to put all their guys back in because the Pelicans made that game closer than it should have been. PJ, we need to know the minutes, I think, and I don't think we're going to, because that game's at 8. So I would need to know the minutes. If he's out, you maybe circle back to the Najee Marshall stuff, although he hasn't been great. Now he's $8,000. So, and Tari Eason's probably the next name I'd get to. He smashed in 26 minutes, and that includes the foul trouble that he was in the first half. He played pacing well over 30, including, like, if you remove that foul trouble, still started over Jabari. I think, seeing Jabari also play the minutes that he played helps. Okay. No Oubre.
Okay.
No Drummond. Alex Reese available.
Okay.
Justin Edwards out. So we now know no Grimes, no Oubre, no Drummond, no Edwards.
Mm-hmm.
So they're going to have – so they have available, with Reese available, they have Yabusele, Butler, Bona, Council, Doughton, Reese, Hood-Schifino, and O'Shea Brissett. That's their 8. So that confirms to me that Jeff Doughton's playing.
Right, because they don't have enough.
They would have to. Well, hold on. I guess. No. He has to be available. He has to be available.
Has to be available. Yeah.
Yeah, he has to be available. So that would confirm that Jeff Doughton would play, because that's 8 players, if I counted that correctly.
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask you: with 8, do you think Yabusele plays enough? We're at power forward. He's 5,100.
I would have to assume so. They don't like.
They just remember, Toronto didn't play Chris Boucher.
Right.
One of 8 guys.
That's fair. I guess. But I mean, if he's gonna start, probably, right?
Yeah, he'll start. Jesus. So the Bona thing is for sure in play. They have Alex Reese that they could play at center. They have Yabusele that is versatile. He can play power forward and center. I guess it just depends on what they do with their starting lineup. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I'm answering the questions. We just got questions in the chat.
Yeah. Bona smash play now.
I
don't know if he's ever a smash play, but it's gonna have the minutes.
They got 8 guys. So they're short. They're very short-handed in the guard room. They have available bigs: Yabusele, Bona, Reese.
Yeah.
Council. They could play at the 4.
I mean, he's what? Bona's 34, or was he up to
38? 38. But Reese is min salary $3K. So,
but you don't know if that guy's going to even suit up.
Yeah, he's going to play.
You think so?
Yeah,
okay.
For sure.
Right.
They have 8 guys.
Well, yeah, it doesn't mean they play all 8 guys. You just said the other day Boucher didn't play.
Yeah, but they hate Chris Boucher. Nick Nurse hated Chris Boucher, and now Darko hates Chris Boucher.
Yeah, that's fair.
They've played Reese in recent memory.
Sure. A couple of years ago. All right, let's go to center then. Again, a position where we really like Jared Allen at $6,400. Mark Williams is in a really great spot. You've been in on Zubac at 86.
Jeremy Sohan at power forward. We didn't really finish down the list. Dylan Brooks at power forward as a value play. Jordan Niang as a value play as well.
Okay. All right. Well, then what's the center play?
Zubats for sure. No Capella. Zubats is gonna kill Onyeka Okongwu. And we're Onyeka Okongwu truthers here, John. But no Capella hurts. Zubats is gonna own that matchup. Atlanta's 25th in allowing points in the paint. Zubats is gonna cook. So I love Zubats 86. I love Mark Williams at 76 in tournaments. I think Mark Williams is in a really good spot. Lost out on some blowout run last game. Every time he gets extended, he smashes 4 double-doubles or 6 double-doubles in his last 7 games. Has 50 fantasy points in that stretch as well. Okongwu is fine. I'm willing to go back to the well. I would go Keldon Johnson in that question, Michael, but it's close. I like both of those guys. Love Jared Allen at 64. Oh boy. Jason Tatum out. Kristaps Porzingis out. This is Tatum in, Brown out. Sorry.
Okay.
Tatum in, Brown out, Porzingis out.
So we talked about this last night. If that was the case, Tatum is your top spend up now.
Derek White in, Al Horford in.
Which we expected.
So you have a scenario where they're just going to play Horford at center.
Yep.
They could go double big or Hauser, and then the rest of the starting 5.
Yep. Again, this is the Tatum spot that we talked about, right? A solo Tatum, no Brown, no Porzingis.
Solo Tatum, gonna play 45 minutes. And it's a slate that didn't have a spend up.
Right. But there's so much value.
And it's a terrible spot. So I wonder how many people spend up. I think he's excellent. I'm just very curious of what the ownership is going to pivot to.
Because I mean, we do see oftentimes like a reaction to almost Tatum specifically, right? Like when the Celtics rule out the plays that they do, Jaylen Brown gets a huge bump. He was over 40% when he got ruled out the other day. When Tatum got ruled out, like I feel like because there's so much value and there wasn't really that clear cut spend up play, and Tatum coming off of the games that he's also been coming off of, that now people will look to go to Tatum. I mean, I'm not saying he's 50% now, but he might be up to 25%, right?
He might be 50. He might end up being 50.
Think so?
So here's no Jalen, no KP on the floor this year.
Yeah, it's like 1.6 probably.
1.5, 1.5 fantasy points per minute, but it's a near 7% usage bump to 38%. This is a 700-minute sample.
Yeah.
38% usage, 1.5 fantasy points per minute. The interesting one to me here, John, Derek White leads the team in usage bump, 7.5%, up to 27, 1.17 fantasy points per minute. Peyton Pritchard, the only other guy over a fantasy point per minute, he's at a fantasy point per minute, 20.6% usage rate. Those are the only 3 over a fantasy point per minute. Al's at 0.89, that's fine. Cornette 0.89, that's fine. Hauser 0.76. You know how we talk about Hauser a lot. And like Drew 0.79.
Sudden Sam, you know.
So, yeah, sure. I most likely, if I'm like playing Boston, probably those three. And if you wanted to make a case on Al because of how well Al is playing, you can. So I would probably rank them Tatum, White, Pritchard, Horford. But I do really think Derek White becomes because also Derek White is kind of priced in that like Garland range.
Yeah.
And like Garland's in the better game environment. So like Derek White could become an interesting pivot there. Because we've also seen Derek White's range of outcome
super high.
Be 41 actual in a game. So like I still prefer, like if I'm picking between him and Garland in a vacuum, I'm picking Garland, but I do think this becomes a little more interesting conversation.
Omega wants to know if he'd play both Garland and White or do the split of Tatum and Jerome.
It's a great question. I think the second one has the ceiling because if you
Tatum
get
could go for 80 and Jerome,
if you get the 30 minutes out of Jerome, you're cooking with gas. Because Ty Jerome's had 50 plus fantasy points like multiple times this year.
Mm-hmm.
I think the safer one is probably the first option, and the tournament. Not that Tatum's going to be like low.
I'm going to say, like, listen, OKC, everybody was active except for Porzingis for the Celtics, and Derek White went for 51 fantasy points.
Right, he's been great. He's been great.
Like,
yeah, he's been great.
And then the games where people were out, Utah and Portland, 59 and 47. So,
and the minutes have been so good. Another like we're going to play you all the minutes you can handle type scenario for Derek White.
Yep. Honestly, I might go the Garland White route, but
yep, I might too. No, dude, I think it's look. I think that's I think both those. The 2v2 there is great. Like, there's no real wrong answer. I do think Tatum has the ceiling though.
Yeah, for sure.
Because Jason Tatum is a top 5 MVP candidate without his best player, without the Finals MVP from last. Again, both great plays.
Tatum versus Bridges is also a good question because you're getting $2,000 cheaper Bridges, who's going for 60 plus for 4 straight.
I think. Man, it's a good question. And he's facing again the worst defense in the league since Victor Wembanyama went down. And Miami is the slowest paced team, or one of the slowest paced teams in the NBA. Man, tough question. I'd probably go Bridges, but I'd feel very uncomfortable about it.
Yeah.
I'd almost feel uncomfortable either way, right? Like if I don't play Bridges or if I don't play Tatum. Only way I don't play Bridges is because I wanted to play another Charlotte guy. I wanted to play like Lamelo or Mark Williams.
Yeah, no, I agree. Where does like Al Horford fit into this for you now?
He's 4th for me.
Okay.
He's 0.89 fantasy points per minute, but he's 4th. Okay. Behind Pritchard, White, Tatum.
Okay. Obviously the last 4 games have been different than what he's played all season long. So.
Yes, but I'm not saying it like a bad 4th. You could talk me into Al Horford and be like, look at how well he's playing. I'd be like, yeah, guy's been great.
Where does Pritchard rank for you among the value guards that are on this slate then tonight? Do you still go Jerome? Do you still go Paul?
Pritchard over Paul, Jerome over Pritchard, Philly over everything. Okay. They have 8 guys. Philly has 8 active players. Yep. It's
Butler ownership, by the way, now up to 60%. So
he is. That's your first plug today, Jared Butler.
All right, again, you mentioned Zubac. I just still think Jared Allen is your guy here.
Yeah, he's great. Yeah, he's great.
Where else do you go at center though?
We rattled off a bunch of names from Zubac down to Jared Allen. I love Mark Williams in tournaments. Just to harp on the Zubac point, Atlanta 25th in points in the paint, and they don't have Clint Capella. They're going to get demolished by Zubac tonight. Jared Allen's great. I think Rudy Gobert is fine. You can talk me into Philly any 3 Philadelphia guys, I think you could talk me into, because there's 3 centers, Yabusele, Reese, and Bona. You could talk me into any 3, and I think that's fine. If everything remains status quo for Dallas, you could talk me into some small ball Kessler Edwards, although I don't love the price. Talk Sohan, you can play Sohan. Yeah, that's probably it.
Okay.
But Philly small ball stuff, or any of the Philly stuff, I'm not even. I think the ownership is going to be very condensed at center tonight. I'd love to see what we start looking at for ownership when it updates for Philly. Because they have 8 available. I don't even want to try to guess what their starting lineup is going to be.
Yeah.
We know for a fact Butler and Yabusele. That's it. That's the only guarantee that we really can make. Because what if Alex Reese is starting at 3K? I would play Alex Reese at 3K. Or if Adem Bona at 38, I would play Adem Bona at 38. So, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm curious again to see where the Tatum ownership goes, because he was 4% before all this news came out. So,
Yeah.
we'll see what that impacts. But all right, let's get a lineup going then, I guess. Go Butler.
Council,
yeah. Council, small forward. Do Jerome. Guard. Butler can get shooting guard, right?
Yeah,
So,
Miles Turner is definitely fine, Travis. It's not like he is good. Not great. I don't like the price increase there. Personally, I would just probably find a couple extra $100 or save the couple $100 to go to Jared Allen or go up to a lower owned Mark Williams, but Miles Turner is fine.
all right. So say we did this.
John, so hold on. We got the Philly update on ownership.
Okay.
Quentin Grimes is not playing tonight, Anthony, so I did not forget him. Jared Butler, Ricky Council, Jeff Doughton, Adem Bona are 1 through 4. They are all 40% or higher.
Yeah, Council and Butler over 70. And this is for large fields.
That was what I was hoping. And that's why I said to you, I was hoping that some of these players would play.
Yeah.
Because we have 8 Philly available, and one of them's not even in the player pool. We can't even play O'Shea Brissett.
Mm-hmm.
Travis, I would play any combination of Philadelphia tonight that you can, considering that they have 8, and you can only play 7 of them.
We're so close to getting
Mobley.
Yeah.
You can play Derek White over Garland instead of Fort Cleveland.
Yeah.
I don't know if you wanted to, but
no, I mean I'm not against it. I mean, Mobley, Allen, Jerome, Butler, Council, Doughton, Tatum, White. Fits.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be hard. It's gonna be a hard night to fade Philadelphia, and not have 3. I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say I would max 5 Philly tonight. I would play 5. I'm not saying I'm going to. I'm just saying I would.
What's your 5?
And you can play any combination. I think there's no wrong.
Sure, but like there's still a ceiling of what play. Okay, you play a Dembona, he plays 35 minutes tonight. Do you think he outscores Jared Allen, who plays 35 minutes tonight?
That's not even the same. But if I play a Dembona for 35 minutes, he's the winner in that scenario.
Okay.
He'll score enough fantasy points to.
But if you play, there's not enough to spend up for, right?
Tatum, Bridges, like if you had Tatum, Bridges, Mobley as your other 3, or Tatum, Harden.
But do you think that Bone is playing that many minutes? I guess is my question. Like,
there's a chance. They have 8 guys. Like I don't know what the range of outcome for basically anything related to
it's $100
Philly is. I don't know what the range of outcome is here, because they have 8 guys. And Anthony, they are going to suck and they are going to lose. But in DFS, that doesn't necessarily matter. They have 8 guys and they're really cheap.
Yeah.
So to stack Indiana, you would need Philly to stay competitive.
Mm-hmm.
That means Philly's in every winning lineup imaginable. But also, their most expensive player tonight is $5,100, and he's on a minutes limit. Or at least we're told he's on a minutes limit.
I mean, I was going to say, he played 28 the other day. So.
He's on some type of limit. So, like, even if Philly loses by 40 tonight and scores 100 points, you're going to see 3 to 4 of them in the winning lineup.
Sure. So you do like something like this then? Is this what you're looking at doing?
Probably. And then you can move down to point guard, and then so you can so you don't have to
And you're still probably playing Ant, I don't even know at this point.
9,600. I mean, the answer is definitely Ja.
At this price point, I guess. You could go down to Vassell or Castle, I guess here.
And then you get up to Harden, or you can go up to Garland there.
Go up to Garland.
Anthony, that's not correct. I understand what you're saying, but for DFS, they are so cheap that they will be in most every optimal lineup imaginable. It's going to be hard. You're going to be hard pressed not to have a minimum of 2 Philly, and you can have upwards of 5 on DraftKings because of how cheap they are.
So if you do the Castle thing, you get the Trae Young. If you go to Garland, you have $9K for a util, which kind of isn't a great spot.
Kawhi in a really good spot.
But he would be he's been less consistent, right?
Yeah, it's a great spot. Dyson Daniels, defense guarding at Harden. Zubats has been great.
Yeah.
Atlanta 25th in points in the paint. No Capella.
Sure.
Zubats fits there too.
Yep. So just example lineups for everybody. A lot to talk about, obviously, because there's so much. I'm waiting to see if we get the Tatum update at all with the most recent update. Tatum now 17%.
I will definitely be playing at 17% Jason Tatum.
That's where you're at.
I know they only have 108 implied points, and if I don't, if I can't get to Tatum, I'll just play Derek White. But I will definitely have interest in, despite how terrible that game environment is.
You can get to this: Doughton, Butler, Council, Tatum, Bona, Garland, Mobley, Castle. $700 left over if you wanted to do something like that.
Yeah. I like it.
Or you could, you want Mobley though, but you could flip this and actually play Jared Allen, Kawhi Leonard, probably.
Yep. Or you could play Bridges over Mobley. There's a lot of things you could do.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Bridges over Mobley. All right, guys. Good luck tonight. Again, get in that Discord. We'll talk it all out through there. Roster lock at 7 p.m. Eastern time. Hope to see you guys in the winner circle. We'll see you then.